I didn't cry while I was prepping for this section because I already knew from the very start that this was my weakest point. Like, even my coach pointed it out early on. And if you've been following my journey, you probably remember how the rest went. Reading, I thought it would be easy, but I got a little too relaxed during the prep. Well, for listening, I figured out I could just wing it, and it ended up super frustrating. And speaking, well, that was one thing that I knew I was confident about. But writing? Writing really scared me. Like, that 75-minute timer just really used to paralyze me. Instead of avoiding it, I just went all in. Like, no shortcuts, no hoping for the best. I trained hard, and I guess it really paid off. So in this video, I'm going to share the exact strategies that I use to turn my biggest fear, which is writing, in one of my strongest sections. That being said, welcome to the third video in my 4-part series on the German B2 exam. I'm sharing everything I've learned about each section, tips, tricks, and all the painful mistakes I made so you don't have to. And today, it's all about writing. Why is writing tricky at B2 and what you can do about it? You think writing would be easier than speaking, right? You have more time, you can think, you can edit. But the truth is, writing is a trap. Why? Well, you're expected to write formally, but still sound natural. You need to express your opinions about the themes and make sure that it flows nicely. You need to use connectors, passive voice, subjunctive forms. Basically, watch out for your grammar and prove that you know B2 words while staying on the topic. And by the way, you only have 75 minutes to write all about Teil 1 and Teil 2. I know it's a lot, but here's how I break it down and how I made it work. Chapter 1, building a strong writing foundation. In my experience, building a strong writing foundation really came down to two things: grammar and vocabulary words. Once those two pillars were solid, everything else became manageable. So let's start with grammar. I worked through Grammatik Aktiv A1 to B1 and the Grammatik Aktiv B2 to C1. And those two books really helped me understand how to build sentences and develop a sense of what sounds right. So if that grammar gut feeling hasn't kicked in yet, don't worry. Just keep showing up for it. I aim to complete one chapter a day, even on days when I was exhausted. And at that time, I had like 3 jobs. It wasn't really exciting or fun, but I just reminded myself, if I slack off now, I'll just stay stuck. So if I wanted to avoid retaking the exam, I had to build this foundation. Plus, improving grammar didn't just help with my writing. It also helped me with reading, listening, and speaking. So yes, all that effort was totally worth it. Just a small fun fact, I still do grammar drills up until now, but that's for another video. Now let's talk about vocabulary. For this, I used Anki to study the A1 to B1 word list, which is actually available on the Goethe website, and I'll be linking that on the description box. But since there's no official B2 word list, I created my own using Deutsch Intensiv B1 and B2 book. I also picked up a lot of new words while I was working through my main books, which is So geht's mit Erfolg, Deutsch Prüfungstraining, and the Goethe Übungsbuch. Well, was it a lot? Yes, but honestly, if you're pressed for time, just focus on the A1 to B1 list and the Deutsch Intensiv books, because those can really give you like a solid foundation. And the third thing that I did is journaling. Because I knew from the beginning that writing was a challenge for me, I just started small, just describing my day, how it went in German. It took me forever to write the simplest thoughts, but little by little, I started feeling more comfortable. Eventually, I began applying new grammar rules and vocabulary I've learned. In the beginning, I didn't worry about mistakes. I just wrote. I even used my German dictionary app in Depot while journaling, which actually helped me expand my vocabulary. Once I felt more confident, I started posting writing exercises on the subreddit r/WriteStreetGerman to get corrections. And that gave me valuable feedback and helped me get to know my own writing style. Like how I naturally form sentences in German. Chapter 2, Exam Prep. I guess for this part, the most important thing to do first is to get to know the task early. One of the first things I did was to familiarize myself early on with the writing section. Like for me, I think of it as a more of a mental preparation. Just knowing what I am up against gave me the time to sort of process and how to tackle this task. First, I tried to Google more resources, but it got really overwhelming fast. So in the end, I just decided to stick to a few solid materials rather than overwhelming myself. I used the books So geht's mit Erfolg, Deutsch Prüfungstraining to kind of understand how these tasks are structured and how I would be graded for it. The writing section has like two parts. First one is Teil 1, which is a forum post or opinion essay on B2 relevant topics. Here, you're usually asked to express your opinion, explain your reasoning, talk about pros and cons, and or offer alternatives. The second part, which is Teil 2, is more of a formal letter wherein you're usually describing a situation, apologizing for something, or making a request or suggestion to improve the situation. It sounds like a lot, and I felt exactly the same, so I made sure to start early with the preparation. Second thing that I did is learning through examples. I'm someone who learns best through examples. And honestly, no matter how many times I read the instructions on how to answer it on the book, I just couldn't grasp it until I saw it in action, which is through example. So I decided to Google and ended up on this subreddit, which is called r/WriteStreakGerman, just to see how other learners are doing it. I really doom scrolled on that subreddit just for me to recognize writing patterns before attempting my own writing. And I felt like it really helped unlock the formula for me. The next thing that I did is to get to know Redemittels and Konnektoren that I need to use for Teil 1 and Teil 2 of the exam. Once I felt more familiar of the basic structure by reading the examples, I realized I needed more than ideas. I needed to learn to express my ideas more clearly and logically. And so that's when I got serious about learning Redemittels and connectors. These are phrases and linking words that help your writing flow so much better. Without them, your text can end up sounding like a list of disconnected thoughts. So here are some of the Redemittel and the Konnektoren that I have used myself, but I actually have a freebie of the list of all Redemittels and Konnektoren that you can use for writing, and you can find the link of that freebie on the description box below. I hope it helps. Some of my go-to Konnektoren were zuerst, danach, schliesslich, which really helps organize your ideas. Einerseits, andererseits for contrast, weshalb aus diesem Grund to show cause and effect. Trotzdem, jedoch and obwohl for nuance. Zum Beispiel, nämlich, insbesondere to give support. Just a tip, although I'm giving a list of Redemittels and Konnektorens, keep a list of your favorite Redemittels and Konnektoren just because it can get overwhelming if you try to use all of them. So just take a note of that when you are doing your own writing practice. The next thing that's really important for the exam prep is to expand your vocabulary strategically. You really don't need a lot of fancy words, but you do need a lot of variety and precision. So instead of repeating the same verbs and phrases, I built a small set of useful synonyms. For sagen, I would use äußern, mitteilen, erwähnen. For instead of wichtig, I would write wesentlich, entscheidend, relevant. Instead of good, I'd write like angemessen, sinnvoll, effective. And aside from that, you can also use passive form of sentences to sound more advanced. Another thing that's important for the exam prep is reading about B2 topics. This part really helped me a lot, both for writing and speaking. I found a book called 65 Themen zum Schreiben und Sprechen, Vor- und Nachteile, B2 und C1. For me, this book was really a gold mine for idea building and learning how to structure arguments. Like, you can try and get the new edition since some of the topics like AI or about the pandemic weren't covered in the older one. And you can also try to Google Goethe B2 Schreiben Beispiele to find free PDFs with practice topics. I think in the writing part, what's really important is to learn the structure first and then add your own style. I found that once I had a strong structure, my writing became so much easier and that the thoughts are more organized. So for Teil 1, which is opinion essay and forum post, here's my step-by-step strategy. I would read the prompt or like the instructions carefully, and then I would underline the key tasks. I would use a scratch paper. You can actually ask for a scratch paper if they don't give you one. And in the scratch paper, I would jot down the keywords for each of the tasks that I need to accomplish. Then I would plan the Redemittel and the Konnektoren that I would need to use. After that, I'd be writing the full text. Your structure should look like this. Like for the Anleitung, here is where you introduce the topic, like why is it relevant, interesting, or controversial. And then the next part should be your Meinung, like you share your opinion, like is it good, important, or necessary. The next part is your Begründung, wherein you would give the reasons why you had that opinion. Try to give just 2 reasons for this part. The next part is the zwei Möglichkeiten. In this part, try to give just 2 options. So you won't be writing a lot. Try to also write the advantages for each options. The last part, which is your Schluss, try to write up like a summary or a final thought. The next part is Teil 2, which is writing a formal letter. This part kind of feels different, but the prep is kind of similar. The first thing you need to do is read and underline the key info in the task list. Number 2 is to list the required points on a scratch paper and then write your corresponding answer. And then third is you try to organize your ideas logically. Number 4 is to list down helpful Redemittels and Konnektorens that you can use in order to logically organize your ideas. After that, you can write the letter. Try to aim at least like 2 sentences per bullet point of each idea that you wanted to write. Now that you know how to structure your letter, it's time to practice, but make it real. At first, I did just 1 task a day, either Teil 1 or Teil 2. And then once I got used to that, I worked up to doing both tasks daily. And then I wrote by hand, not with a computer, because that's what you'll be doing in the exam. So you sort of need to train your writing endurance. It's important that I time myself to get used to that 75-minute limit. Eventually, I was able to write both parts within a time limit, without a dictionary, with just a timer, and most importantly, without rewriting. Like in the exam, you only have 75 minutes, and that is a short amount of time. So I would suggest to use most of your time into organizing your thoughts and thinking what Redemittels and Konnektorens you could use, because that will really lessen that rewriting part. Just remember that you're not aiming for perfect, you're aiming for clear, correct, and complete. So after you've done your writing practice, it's really important to get feedback. So I either posted my work to r/WriteStreetGerman, use ChatGPT, or ask my then language teacher to correct my mistakes. Asking for feedback is really crucial because I learned how to better structure my sentences and so that I would have a better flow of ideas by getting corrections. Chapter 3, Exam Strategies. These are mostly things to remember on the exam day itself because ideally, most of the real strategy should already be a part of your preparation. Here's what helped me stay focused and save time. Start with what you're comfortable with. Tackle the task you feel more confident about first. This really helps build momentum, it saves time, and secures the points you need early on. Avoid rewriting. If you practice before the test, you should already be familiar with the structure and common mistakes, so avoid rewriting unless absolutely necessary. Instead of rewriting, take a moment to really map out your ideas and keywords first, like how I explained earlier. That way, your draft is like already organized before you even start writing. In case you didn't know, you have to write legibly. Clear handwriting makes it easier for the examiner to read and grade your work. To have a best shot at legibility, make sure that you build your writing endurance during the prep, and then try to avoid rewriting mid-exam because it can just make you tired and will start making your handwriting really messy. So if ever you make a mistake, simply strike it out with a single line. No writing of the new words on top of it, just write it next to the mistake. Don't try to write over your mistake. This just makes it look messy and makes it hard to understand. The next one is watch your grammar, spelling, and vocabulary. This might sound obvious, but it's easy to overlook when you're under time pressure, so keep these in mind. You have to use appropriate B2 level vocabulary, watch your verb endings, articles, and cases. Make sure you double check tricky spellings and stick with the phrases you know how to use correctly. Next thing that you have to check is if you have fulfilled the content requirements. So go back to the prompts and then check if you have answered every point. It doesn't matter if you have a well-written letter if the content is incomplete. Here are some traps that I personally fell into, and I hope that you would learn from me. First one is skipping task points. So always double check if you've responded to everything asked. The next one is mixing formal and informal tone. Keep your tone consistent and appropriate for the task. The next mistake is writing too little. Aim for 150 to 180 words because writing too short can cost you points. Another mistake is repeating the same phrases. In this part, you really have to learn Redemittels because having a variety keeps your writing more natural and fluent. Another mistake that I did is using phrases that I didn't fully understand. I've been there. If you're unsure about a Redemittel, try translating it first and seeing it in context before you try using it. These things may seem simple, but they really help me stay on track and use my time wisely. So last but not the least, chapter 4, mindset. This part can really make a difference, especially when the exam nerves start to kick in. Practice builds confidence. Honestly, just putting in the writing reps helped me build that kind of muscle memory that I got used to the structure so much that it came almost automatically during the exam. Of course, not every topic will fit your ideal structure perfectly, but when that happens, your solid grammar and vocabulary skills will carry you through. And those only come from consistent practice too. The next thing you need to remember is it's not about being perfect, it's about being clear and structured. So you don't need fancy words or poetic phrasing to score well. What the examiner wants is like a clear, organized response. Think introduction, opinion, arguments, conclusion. So don't try to overcomplicate it. Just make sure that you guide your reader through your thoughts. Probably it can help to treat it more of like a formula and not freestyle. Once I started seeing writing as more of a formula that I could just plug my ideas into, it felt way less scary. I personally think that there's a structure that works. Try to master it and then just try to swap out depending on the topic, because having that mindset gave me like a huge confidence boost, knowing that I didn't have to reinvent the wheel every time I write. I want to say that your ideas don't have to be right, they just have to make sense. This helped me so much because knowing that I'm not being graded on my opinion, it's all about just how I argue it, helped me become more confident with my writing. So even if your example is just made up or your opinion isn't super deep, as long as your points are logical and clearly explained, you're on the right track. I hope you were able to pick up 1 or 2 tips today that will help you improve your writing and pass the exam. Writing can really feel complicated at first, but trust me, it gets better once you learn how to build a good structure and use the Redemittels and Konnektoren effectively. So don't you ever dare give up. If you found this video helpful and want to follow along this German B2 exam series of mine, please hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps with the algorithm so that other German learners can find this video. Also, let me know in the comments what part of the writing exam confuses you the most. I'm planning a Q&A video where I'll be answering questions and cover anything that I've missed in this series. So feel free to write down all your questions in the comment section. That being said, thank you so much for tuning in today, and I'll be seeing y'all in the next part. Tschüss!